The most important process and event in the history of the UU Church of Canton began in the 1840s, some 2 decades after we organized as a church. Universalism was becoming a river of change as it flowed and became more and more mainstream and more middle class. There became a need for Universalist ministers to have formal educations. The 1847 Universalist Convention voted to establish a theological school and a university. Just a short few years later, Tufts College in Boston was established in 1852. There was no formal theological school formed at that time. So Universalists in New York State started raising the money to start a theological school. The Reverend J.T. Goodrich, who served this congregation in the 1850s, went around the state soliciting. Once enough money was raised, a committee was formed to figure out where the school should be located. The preference was for a central location, easy to get to by railroad, preferably in the Hudson or Mohawk River valleys. Enter now the hero of this event and our story, Martin Thatcher. He was born in nearby DeKalb and moved to Canton when he became county clerk in the 1840s. He was very active in the Universalist State Convention and served as a delegate when it was decided a theological school should be established. He was friends with important people like Silas Wright, the New York governor, whose residence was next to our church. Thatcher also knew people in the state legislature. He brimmed with privilege, connection, power, and influence. He was eventually appointed to the committee that would decide where the theological school would be located. He urged the village of Canton to put a bid in. In many ways, Canton should not have been in the running at all. As today, we are pretty far away from everything, and at the time had no railroad. We were a really rural village of about 1,000 people, but we were the county seat. We had a hotel, several mills, and some small factories. 12 communities applied to have the new Universalist seminary in their town. Thatcher knew that ultimately the town that gave the best piece of land with the most money would get the school. From inside of that committee, he knew Canton would be outbid. So he decided to broaden the appeal of fundraising to include not just a Universalist theological school, but also a non-sectarian college as well. Thatcher solicited the citizens of Canton. I'm not sure exactly how successful he was. We know for sure that the Presbyterians opposed the Universalist school to be located here, and most likely others did as well. Thatcher got his 3 close Universalist friends involved: Levi Bidwell Storrs, a tailor and factory owner; Theodore Caldwell, a grocer, and whose father was a founding member of this congregation; and Barzali Hodgkin, a manufacturer and entrepreneur who was eventually elected county treasurer, mayor of the village, built an opera house and a hotel. The 4 not only purchased the land and gave money, but also signed a promissory note guaranteeing that the other pledges. In all, Canton pledged 20-some acres of land and between $15,000 and $20,000, which in our today's dollars would be over $500,000. That money was set aside to build the first building, which would later become Richardson Hall. The 4 not only purchased the land, many of the pledges that came from outside of Canton and many of the small Universalist societies throughout New York State. In the end, Canton won. And in 1856, Thatcher, who was well connected, quickly got a charter from the New York State legislature to establish St. Lawrence University and Theological School. Soon, Universalists from around the state arrived in Canton for the laying of the cornerstone. Many were probably surprised that the cornerstone was not only for a theological school, but for a college as well. There would have been fears that this small denomination could not support both Tufts and St. Lawrence. In 1858, the first 4 students of the theological school enrolled, 17 by the end of the second year. In those first 2 years, the only faculty member was its president, the Reverend Ebenezer Fisher, who is memorialized in one of our windows. The first commencements were held in our former building. The academic college opened in 1859 with 65 students. Reverend Fisher taught in both schools. Financial hardship and low enrollments led Thatcher to again come through to secure money, this time a $25,000 grant from the New York State legislature. So fast forward 100 years now. Unitarians and Universalists consolidated in the early 1960s, and it was decided that we had too many theological schools to support. And in 1965, the theological school closed. Our very own, the Reverend David Weisbard, was the last graduate. However, closed for many years, its spirit lives on in many ways, way beyond the graduates. I serve on the St. Lawrence Foundation for Theological Education, the AIR organization, to all those pledges and fundraisers made so long ago. Today, we help give out thousands of dollars a year to support future UU ministers. And of course, St. Lawrence University is still going strong. Originally, the shared vision of Universalists to have a formal training ground for their clergy. It is safe to say, if there was not a Universalist church in Canton long ago, there would be no St. Lawrence University. It is also safe to say that if St. Lawrence University did not exist today, there would be no UU Church of Canton. Our village is very dependent on the university. The Canton congregation probably would have closed like dozens of other Universalist societies in Northern New York. Maybe we were educated there and now have good jobs because of it, or maybe we have friends and family that work there, or we work there ourselves. But this is not just about the economic lift of having a university in our village. That original vision of a theological school brought great leaders here to Canton, and not just clergy, but the many students and faculty who have become members over the years. Our congregation created a new Canton industry, not manufacturing or farming, but the cultivation of young minds. This, in turn, changed the course of our stream. Once you step into the river, you change the river, and the river changes you.